even call it disease in psychology. And I just want to start probably from, first of all, a misconception that procrastination is a new thing. Lots of people really think that procrastination started when Facebook and LinkedIn arrived in our life. But it's actually not true, because the very first mentions about something like procrastination was from Greek philosophers, when they said, when they were already concerned not to put your work off during, to the next day. So think about it. Ancient Greek already have some troubles with procrastination. Now, what we have right now is, of course, slightly different, and why I'll explain you in a minute. Now, probably it's a good time to introduce myself. My name is Alena, and I'm a founder of a behavior change tech startup, Sonas. We are an award tech startup, and we are based in Scotland. So we are specializing in applied behavioral science to improve workplace well-being. So as you probably can imagine, procrastination is something that we are regularly dealing with. So that gives me some credibility to talk about it today. Now, my expertise in applied behavioral science, I've got master's in behavioral science from University of Stirling, and that really gives me a good foundation to bring some science-backed factors today about procrastination. I tend to compare procrastination with a credit card, really. So it's a good analogy, think about it. You first enjoy your life when you are paying by credit card for a good you want, but then there is a price attached and time, to pay back for what you were about to buy, having the temptation for it. So that's about procrastination. So let's start from a definition. And I think that already will clarify lots of misconceptions about it in your head. So basically, procrastination is when we make a voluntary effort, voluntary, that's a key word, to actually not to do an important task that we should do, even though we know we will suffer at the end of it. So that's a very interesting fact to consider, okay? We volunteer for something we'll know will bring us suffering, and we still do it. Now, lots of people will try to convince you that they only do it because they do not put enough efforts in managing their day or managing their life or a task they want to do. But it's not true, actually. What happens there are two reasons why we really do procrastinate and why we make this voluntary decision. And one reason is we do suffer with emotion regulation behind. So to give you a bit of understanding, I'll give you an example. We all tend to really be future-oriented. Sorry, not future-oriented, future-bias. We like to focus on something that we could easily imagine is a short pay reward. Let's say if I've got an ice cream on the table, don't have it right now, but I imagine if I have it, that to me means if I stop and eat it right now, this will pay me off immediately. This immediate reward is really important. Now, think about that. Quite usually, procrastination attached to tasks that are very important, but the result of it comes only longer term. If you write a dissertation, if you write a business plan, if you try to prepare for exams, if you do something that really needs constant efforts to work on, but the result of it will be somewhere in the future. So now, because the brain likes the short-term rewards, we try to replace it with something to get this pleasure moment now. That's basically what it is. So it is a lack of emotion regulation behind the concept, really. And when we try, let's say, to compromise, what is it, more important, this immediate pleasure or something that I'll get in the future, we can't even trust that the future benefit, it's something that, we will get at the end. How do we know if the salary will be raised after I finish the project? How do I know if my grade will be really good at the end of it? How do I know if I really will lose the weight, although the efforts to, stay on diet or stay on track with exercising regularly is actually a lot of efforts. And that's what's going on really in the brain. Now, there is another thing that is important to remember. We also have a tendency to plan wrong. So planning fallacy is something that we all fall quite often. Now, what I mean by planning fallacy, it means that we imagine this ideal outcome of our project, and then, of course, the problems come on the way, and the road from the point A to a point B is not as clear and ideal as we imagined that. And this is what gives brain already almost like we are deceiving it. We promise the outcome is there, but it's not there. So if something at this particular moment really plays to us as a reward on the table, we will fall for it more likely. And this is exactly why some companies, big tech companies like Netflix, like Google, like other, great players in this tech arena right now, why they make lots of money out of us. I'm not saying it's bad. They just figure out the concept of procrastination. If you are emotionally depleted and you're frustrated, let's say, because the result is not there, then to watch one episode of Netflix, to go and do some sort of 11 or 12 to-do task on your list that is not that important, looks like almost like a compensation for what you didn't have. And this is basically the main thing to consider, right? We are not great in terms of self-regulation of our emotions. Now, the question is, what can we do, right, on a daily basis to really help ourselves to get better? There are a couple of things I want really to share with you today. And in my startup life, really, I found them very effective. So first of all, let's try to trick the brain slightly. If the brain wants an immediate reward, and usually the task that you're trying to stay on is quite big, let's maybe try to split the task into a few smaller tasks, so that instead of a huge big deadline that you would probably put on to achieve at some moment, you will have more meaningful, more mindful, and more realistic deadlines on the way. And then you can reward yourself with something smaller. Is it a piece of chocolate? Is it an episode of Netflix, or something else like a phone call to your friend, once you try to actually get to the next bit? So instead of having between, if that's your A point and if that's your B point, you will actually have something like C and D in between of them. And it's not as scary then for a brain that it's super unachievable task that probably better not to even try for. Now, another thing, what I tried, and it's actually quite powerfully backed from the science, is if you try to picture, to make the reward that you're striving for more tangible, let's say. An example, let's say that your reward is a dissertation or let's a big project that you're trying, funding application, quite relevant for startups, right? It usually has a few chapters or a few parts to work on. So what you could do then, you could basically, you don't have to be a super artist there, but if you try to visualize your chapters on a piece of paper somehow, and you will place it on the wall or in front of your computer or on your desktop somehow, and if you mindfully really cross out or tick every chapter you approached on the way, this actually is quite a powerful strategy, because this is when the brain starts believing that we are actually moving forward from the point A to the point B. And the third thing that I want to share really today that I tried personally, and again, backed by behavioral science, it's called a strategy of pre-commitments. Now, what is pre-commitment? we do not like to be seen stupidly or badly from in other people's eyes. You know, we all want to look smart and potentially well off. Now, if you feel you want to work on something that you will likely fall off on the way, if it's a gym you're trying to go to regularly or any other challenging project, try to actually bring someone in to help you on the way. And the person, actually, what is funny, doesn't have to do much. The only thing you should do is to take your calendar, let's say if you have a month to work on, and to plan your your weekly or every 3 days meetings or catch-ups with this person. It could be remote 5-10 minutes coffee chat when you will have to explain what did you do during that time. Sounds simple, but really nothing probably worked better for me than these little coffee chats with either a peer or a team member or even a friend, because then it's almost like deadlines are powerful, but it's almost there is another additional layer to a deadline when you have this commitment to show what you achieved so far. And also, what is quite interesting there, that the friend or a peer at this particular point probably would provide you also a feedback on the way where you are. And this is kind of an additional motivation that, again, helps, gives an additional hand to a brain to really stick on what you are working on. Now, some people try also to visualize their goals with something like photos, a photo of a nice location to go, like a holiday to go for after this, or maybe a photo of you where you look nice and you really, really like yourself. So it's something that would remind you on the way that there is a real treat waiting for you, and again could give you an additional lift or power to that. Now, probably I want to touch very slightly also on two misconceptions here, which would definitely be as something that would try to stop you on the way. So first of all, please remember one thing. Some people would say you, many people I know, would say you that they work great and even more productive under deadline. Now, there is no scientific proof of it at all. Instead, it's already proved that working under the tough deadline, procrastinating, and then basically barely making it, there is a high level of stress attached and definitely lower level of well-being. You might think you feel great at the end, you achieved it, but actually, honestly speaking, the amount of stress and the price attached to the quality of your work is not worth, really, of that adrenaline rush that you might have working towards deadline. Again, in order to work with deadlines that has some power to help us to finish the task, just remember about what I shared, the meaningful little deadlines on the way. They would work with the same power, but will bring you to the less stress at the end. Now, another and probably last point I'm going to make here is that please remember that procrastination is, of course, I can't say it's an addiction, but it is something that has a tendency to really increase over time if you do not work on it. It's like a muscle. If you do not train it, then you will not get stronger. Self-regulation, self-control, it actually is something that can be trained, and that's why I'm sharing with you these couple of strategies that I did today. But what is also very important to remember is that it will not be possible to sort on its own. Just because we have external things that creep on our mind, like social media, like Netflix, like other things that will just grip on our attention. And attention is the highest scarcity right now in the world. Some people say allergy is our great problem right now. I would say that attention, a lack of attention, is probably even greater, or at least on the same level. We can't concentrate these days for more than approximately 20 minutes, to keep on, to have your peak without training at all. We can't concentrate of more than 2 minutes, 2 hours a day on, in general, on any task. So now think about it, those 2 hours a day, this is something that to use for your best. So try to really reconsider the concept of procrastination for you, that you will not be able to deal with that if you do not start training. And that's exactly what is my point. 5 minutes per day, Jonathan, exactly a great idea about meditation. Although, again, meditation would require simultaneous and, everyday work, or let's say more systematic work. Otherwise, didn't show great results in front of, from the science perspective. Now, probably I will stop talking right now. I just want to say one last thing, and then I'm happy to jump to the questions. There are much more strategies, very, very powerful strategies to help, and easy to implement, by the way, to help yourself. Now, in my project, we have a particular course where you could basically sign up, and we are training quite professionally how to deal with procrastination, with overload, with productivity, and maintaining well-being, especially in all of these settings right now with regard to the future normal, to the new normal and future of work. We are actually crowdfunding at the moment because we have a digital well-being tool that we are about to launch, and we just launched our recent crowdfunding campaign. And what is interesting, if you pledge us for that project, you will have 50% off for the price if you're an individual for the course that we called Make New Normal Work. And we touch procrastination there as quite a big stone there. So I don't have right now slides with me because we've got technical difficulties, but it's very easy to remember. It's thehappinessatworkproject.com. If you join us, there is a crowdfunding page. You could pledge and get the 50% off for a ticket. And feel free to really drop me any message because you've got an email address there if you have additional questions about the course. Now, I am... and I will actually type here Happy Work Project and visit it. Now I have a few questions here. Give me just a second. I'm going to handle them. Do you have any thoughts on the Pomodoro method? Emily is asking. I do have some thoughts on it, on the Pomodoro method. It probably will take a bit of time to explain people what does it mean, because not everyone knows that. Make it very short, in the nutshell. Pomodoro effect can work for some individuals and will not work for others. I probably will just leave you with this thought, and you can just Google and understand what does this mean. Especially, it proved to not to work very well to people who tend to be more on introverted scale. That will be probably just my very brief answer. So I tend to have good focus at the start of a big project, but as time goes on, and especially towards the end of the project, near the deadline, I lose motivation, focus, and drive to finish it off. And then it's cycle of procrastination. Very, very good point, Sarah. And I'll tell you something there. So if you look at the whole basically curve of you to work on the project, it actually has different points. You could probably imagine it as, like a sinusoid like that. So you have quite a few peaks and quite a few complete falls. And you're absolutely right there. Towards the end of the project, unless you're completely pulling all your resources together, failing the very important deadline, unless you are there, the motivation usually drops because there is also a depletion. And especially if you're already playing on the back of your mind that the result you are going to submit is not exactly the one that you imagine at the very beginning. And I'm talking right now to all of you who tend to be more on perfectionism side. So what good to, again, very quick tip there. What I tend to do if I have this particular moment of drop and I need to finish it off. First of all, go and fresh yourself with a very cold water. For a few minutes only, just, any tap water, but it has to be cold, much colder than you usually tend to use for freshening yourself up. This will bring you back a little bit into that exactly present moment. Second, go for a walk, at least for 10-15 minutes. do not try to jump to a caffeine straight away. I would instead recommend you a nice juice, like maybe, or some sort of like smoothies based with celery or spinach, something like that, because those ingredients give you a bit of a refreshing boost rather than a caffeine that will, it's a very short term effect, especially if you are depleted. So that will bring you a little bit back, and maybe it will be an additional half an hour or an hour you need to finish it up. Just to clarify, so it's more effective to focus on smaller parts of a project and pushing through and look at the bigger picture. Lini, thank you for this question. Clarifying, both are important, but they're important at different part of the stage of the project. At the very beginning, those smaller parts of the project are more important, because if you imagine your whole task is an elephant, you know, I can probably make a little elephant from this piece of paper. The brain doesn't believe we can achieve it. Okay, so if you just say the brain that we only have to get the first leg of elephant, or you know, the first ear of elephant, that sounds much more reasonable and much more achievable. So the brain is ready to give you a bit of a hand in terms of concentration. However, closer to approximately the midpoint, it is important to have a bigger picture, because then there is another thing that can kick off, and it's boredom. You can get bored with what you are doing, especially if you've got a challenging stage when for example, unexpected difficulties. So this is when your bigger picture, for example, a nice photo of what you want to achieve or any other visual, would remind you what you are striving for. Okay, so this is how it works. Now, let me have a look if there are other couple of things that people are asking. Procrastinating on the project, I have to finish by watching this right now. Rashid is saying, I hope this is going to work, Rashid. Dissertation, yes, Lini, dissertation is one of the most common tasks to procrastinate, and that's why lots of projects which are submitted are not in the right quality. But as I said, if you really want, join the course that I was talking about, and we will really share there very interesting strategies, especially with regard to academic work, for example. Well, I can't see any more questions. Again, Jonathan, great point on meditation. Whoever meditates, I know the effects of that are quite good. However, you should remember, it's like a gym. It's very difficult to start meditating, and probably not the best way to do it when you are already working towards a deadline and you have very, very short time to finish it, because it might even make you more frustrated. But going for a nice walk, clearing your head a bit, trying to sleep better. Today was a very interesting talk on the sleep, would help probably a bit more. And then, of course, if you can start learning meditation, then this will be quite powerful strategy as well. But it's not, it's again one of those that is the result of it is in the future, because we have future bias. I didn't see much effect of it on many people straight away, but definitely further down. I suffer from the same things as both Lini and Saral, but also very easily distracted, almost like focus. Any ideas? Well, distractions, I mentioned them a bit. They're definitely great enemies of concentration and attention. And I already mentioned it's a huge scarcity there. Distraction, so a couple of things I can share on the top of my mind. One is try to not to fall for this idea to work for a big chunk of time. Time is very subjective here, right? What is time? But as I already mentioned, we are not 20 minutes is a great sprint. With practice, you can stretch it up to 45 minutes. I don't know personally anyone, maybe besides my brother programmer, who can stay a bit longer than that. But he is very, very well trained programmer and co-founder of our project as well. But even he suffers really. So 45 minutes is, you could put the clock on the table with a countdown starting from 45 minutes and work only until the clock gives you the ring. Now there are two things here. First is the ring bell works for our brain a bit like a wake-up call. So that even if you lose already focus, that will bring you back. But it is super important to take 5, 10, 15 minutes break in between. And then you have another 45 or sometimes even 20 minutes sprint. But also remember, very important to remember about the whole curve. If you look during the day how we work, especially now with the new normal, where like there are lots of distractions, right? So there is one thing that we do not. Some people would be much more productive in the morning, some people in the evening, some people in between. But if you have kids on the background, or animals, or someone else, distracting you, or lots of emails that come to your, email folder, this will creep on even those sprints. So what I tend to do, I zoom out myself. So if I'm working on a specific task that needs my concentration, I try to switch off all notifications, put the phone a little bit away, ideally so you can't reach it physically with the hand, somewhere. Additional behavioral barrier you have to create. And then this could give you a bit of a window where you could actually grab that attention and finish your task. So that's quite important to remember. And do not believe these concepts so that you should only start in the morning and then the afternoon is not productive, or the other way around. We are all different. It depends how much we sleep, what are the climate around us, how much coffee we drink, and so on. So remember, you have your own peaks during the day. Try to find them and put your most important work there, which requires concentration, whereas something else you could postpone. And this is exactly the skill that is difficult to learn if you do not practice. Again, can't already stop saying that if you have a chance and interest to self-develop it, join our course, because that is exactly when we practice these things, not just talk about that in theory. And because we give a wider toolkit, some people prefer one tool, some people another tool. There is nothing like works for absolutely everyone. Okay. Anything else? So I could do and tend to try and cram in hours instead of sprint. Yes, Rashid, you know what I'm talking about. But again, only works for certain professions and for certain individuals. What are emotion analytics, Julia? Thanks for this question. So my team and I, we are developing the Wellbeing Insights tool, and we deploy there a methodology that requires, it's called experience sampling methodology. What we try to do there, we give people a tool, which is like a self-reflection tool, which is like a digital platform, which send them digital diaries during the day. It's 3 times a day usually, in the morning, in the afternoon, and in the evening. And each micro digital diary only takes you 1 minute to complete, or maybe 1.5 minutes. And we ask people a few questions with regard to their activities and their emotions. We then analyze this data and we try to find how our emotions really relate to what are we doing. So how certain emotions affect how productive we are, or how well, how good we achieve what we plan to. So it's a very kind of brief answer here, but this is what we collect and then analyze, and this effect of emotions on our well-being and productivity. This is in the field of emotion analytics, and there are different emotions: positive, negative, neutral. You can't say that negative, for example, emotions affect your productivity only. It's not like that. All emotions matter, and that's why emotion regulation is very important. Again, feel free to join our to follow our website. We have some information there about it, a bit more in specific, and different talks during the year where you can find them in the events page. Probably that's all I've got so far, folks. I probably will stop right now. Again, I want just to share with you the link to our crowdfunding campaign and the website. Feel free to have a look at it and give us, even a like and a share. It will mean to the world to us right now if you just share information about what we do and spread the message across. Thank you very much. And please remember, you are able to beat procrastination. Absolutely are able, but it is not magic there. It requires a bit of work. Thank you very much for your attention.